Indians in general, but in particular, urban Indians and urban office going Indians have lower than optimum D levels. So vitamin D is either made in our skin under the influence of UV beta rays, or it comes through diet, which is not common in Indians, but nevertheless it can come through diet theoretically. Then it goes to our liver. But there is one change in the liver so that the vitamin D becomes activated partially. And then in the circulation, through the blood circulation, it goes through the kidney. And in the kidney, it gets converted into its active form. So vitamin D is the vehicle, is the bridge that takes our calcium from our gut to our blood, and only then it can reach the bone. We all know calcium is important for bones. Now the reason, why should we have such a low D level when the country is blessed with so much sunshine that it hurts? The sun hurts in India. We need to go in the sun to get the benefit of sunlight. And many urban Indians, they don't go in the sun. You avoid the sun, A, because of the heat, and B, because of our, all kinds of phobia and biases and complexes about skin color. Second point, so because we have darker skins, we were supposed to stay outdoors, and darker skins take longer to make the requisite amount of vitamin D than a very pale skin. Okay, a lot of people say, yes, I get enough sun. I go in the morning for a walk, and sunrise, that is the best, healthiest sun. But vitamin D is formed in our skin the best between, say, 11 a.m. and around 3 p.m. And then the final sort of nail in the coffin, so to speak, of vitamin D is the fact that there is so much pollution now. Now, pollution actually scatters the UV beta rays. So these particles in the atmosphere, they don't allow the right kind of rays to reach our skin.
What are some of the other sources then, if not food? Would it be, should we be taking supplements? Because with supplements also there is the fear of, overconsumption and then having excess vitamin D levels.
Quite clearly, the best source still remains the sunlight. And we don't want people to be on, exogenous stuff. We just want them to go in the sun. But I've given you all the reasons why it's not going to happen. So therefore, one may have to resort to supplementation. Till fortification program is in a sort of entrenched in our population. A typical good adequate vitamin D level is about 20 nanograms. 20 nanograms per ml. 25 hydroxy D level, that is what your labs do. So that's one part. So to achieve that, you need, how much do you need per day? You need at the most 2000 units a day. The thing with vitamin D is that you really, most people don't get symptoms. But when you have severe D deficiency, especially if along with that, your calcium intake is low, and for some factors that are not understood, some people with low vitamin D do very well, and some with low vitamin D get into a lot of trouble. That's there in biology. But you may get muscle aches and pains, weakness, calf pain is quite common. All these backaches, people think it's all spondylosis. Some of it is vitamin D deficient. And it may also be that if it's really severe, it leads to a condition called osteomalacia in adults, or rickets in children, where the bones actually get soft and bend.
Is there any specific demographic that is most at risk? Say, maybe the, like you were talking about the urban population, but maybe in terms of age or gender or something like that?
In general, in India, let's look at the studies. In India, studies starting from pregnancy to neonates to children, adolescents, young adults, older adults, elderly, have all shown low levels of vitamin D. And these low levels are simply because of the reasons that I gave you. If the mother doesn't have enough vitamin D, the kid will be born with less vitamin D. So there are two ways to look at it. This is the period of the year when they should be supplemented, and B, this is the group that should be supplemented. So let's do the simple one first, that even if you're not one for supplements and don't like the idea, at least in winter, if you take adequate amounts of vitamin D, because in winter the D levels drop significantly. If I were to choose areas, groups of patients or people rather, where I would be specifically focusing, I would say pregnancy is very important. There's a recommendation from Indian Academy of Pediatrics to give vitamin D to newborns. The second major group would be adolescents. Adolescence is a period when our bones actually grow. And that's when they take up calcium. As we say, we build our bone bank at that time. Now, during adolescence, if we are deficient in calcium or vitamin D or protein, our bones will be smaller, they'll be weaker. We'll never get world class athletes. And then the elderly. Elderly because that's where the bone loss happens. Elderly because that's where they are prone to osteoporotic fractures. Vitamin D plays many roles outside the bone and muscle system. Vitamin D actually plays a role in our innate immunity and adaptive immunity also. And therefore, there have been studies in the past that have shown that for respiratory viral infections, having adequate vitamin D in the blood protects you. And those who are seriously deficient in vitamin D would have poorer outcomes or greater risk of such infections. So this was there with in general. So everyone knows that you try and maintain. It's not a critical factor. It's not like the determining factor, but it is a factor. The proportion of D deficiency that the Spanish study found in their hospitalized COVID patients was actually much higher than what they find in the population. So they thought that lower D might be making a difference to. But remember what they also found. They did find that the D level did not make any difference to the outcomes.
Yeah.
So they are suggesting that, okay, so what is the story there? The story is vitamin D can affect something like COVID in two ways. If you are deficient in vitamin D, your innate immunity, your adaptive immunity will be affected, and therefore you might have a greater chance of picking up the bug. And the second action is that vitamin D is also supposed to be an anti-inflammatory in high doses. So it is thought that if you give high doses of vitamin D, that's a school of thought. If you give high doses of vitamin D to hospitalized patients, you may reduce the cytokine storm that we talk about. But that's not proven yet.